Welcome to a new series of the Hip Talks podcast, a collection of discussions on legal topics hosted by Hugill and Ip solicitors. We provide high-quality legal services with integrity, professionalism and respect for our clients and the community. Our solicitors have achieved outstanding results and recognitions in the areas of dispute resolution, corporate and commercial, private client, probate and trust, family, employment, business immigration and data privacy.
Hi, I'm Adam Hugill of Hugill and Ip Solicitors. I'm the head of the Employment and Immigration team. This is a podcast about employment and entrepreneur visas in Hong Kong. As most people know, Hong Kong nationals and permanent residents have the right to work in Hong Kong without any restrictions. In addition, consistent with the objectives to develop Hong Kong as a high value-added and diversified economy, a wide range of other visas are available for overseas nationals. The most common are what we call general employment visas or general GEP policy. That covers the employment visa and the investment as entrepreneur visas. In addition, there are various other visas available to overseas nationals which allow them to work in Hong Kong, all being subject to their own terms and conditions. These include the Quality Migrant Admission Scheme, the immigration arrangements for non-local graduates, working holiday visas and training visas. For the purposes of today's talk, we'll be focusing on employment and entrepreneur visas. These broadly aim to do the same thing. Employment visas are intended to allow companies to hire overseas talent that is not readily available in Hong Kong. Entrepreneur visas are to provide an opportunity for talented individuals to open and run their businesses in Hong Kong. We're very happy to have with us today my good friend Laura Hunt. Laura is the director of a local Hong Kong voice and talent company called Neon Lights. Hi, Laura.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I think it is right to say you've lived in Hong Kong now for about 4 years?
Yeah, 3 years at the moment. This is my 4th year.
Okay. And what brought you to Hong Kong in the first place?
Well, I'd always wanted to live abroad at some point, and then the UK voted in favour of Brexit, which I wasn't best pleased with, so I thought, why not now? And I settled on Asia because I wanted to explore more of the area. And so I just wrote to drama companies in Hong Kong and Singapore, deciding there'd probably be less of a language barrier in those countries. I'd been teaching voice and singing for a number of years by that point, and I completed my master's in voice studies from the Royal Central School of Speech and Drama, so I hope my qualifications and experience might be desirable. In actual fact, I was overqualified for most of the companies I wrote to, but at that point I just wanted a change of scene, so I was happy to take a job that wasn't perfect. Luckily, a children's drama company in Hong Kong accepted me for a job as their singing teacher on the proviso that I teach some drama as well. So they helped me get the ball rolling and I moved here in October 2016.
And so it certainly sounds like you have the right academic qualifications to qualify you for an employment visa as well as experience. I'm guessing since you are taking up employment with an established Hong Kong company, they handled the visa application process for you?
Yeah, pretty much. I wasn't in Hong Kong at the time the application was being made, so they sent my employment contract, the immigration forms to me, and then I had to return them with copies of my university certificates and so on.
So a fairly straightforward process. Do you recall any difficulties?
It was definitely a longer process than we all expected. They were quite a young company, so they had to jump through quite a few hoops in order to sponsor my visa. So I remember having to send lots of new documents whenever they realised they needed something else from me. So I remember the process started in August 2016, and we hoped that I'd have my visa by early October.
Okay, so they allowed about 8 weeks for the application. When we look at the government guidance, they say it takes about 4 to 6 weeks. But that wasn't your experience? No,
it wasn't. They wanted me to start work as soon as possible. So I did end up moving here before I had my visa. And they asked me to work until the visa had arrived.
And of course, that's not something that is permitted. It's a long-held myth that if the visa application's being made, then you're allowed to work, which of course is not the case.
Exactly. So I was here for a while, essentially as a tourist, and then the visa finally arrived on the 18th of November. And so then I had to do the Macau trip and go there and back in a day to validate the visa. Okay,
so in total it took about 16 weeks, 4 months to process.
It did, yeah. So I guess the most difficult part of that was just finance. I went through most of my savings in that time.
Okay, and the Macau trip, just to explain why that's necessary, when a visa is granted, it's not actually valid when it gets stuck into your passport. It's valid when you re-enter Hong Kong. And so when the visa is granted, the person receiving the visa needs to exit Hong Kong and then re-enter. And then when they receive a chop on their visa from the immigration port, that's when it activates. Okay, you weren't really in Hong Kong for very long before the entrepreneurial bug bit you, and you decided to go it alone.
Yeah, I felt like I wasn't really being challenged in my current role. So at the time, I really wanted to concentrate more on one-to-one voice lessons rather than group lessons. And it made most sense for me to break away from the company and try to do this on my own.
It's a very brave decision. And I understand you decided to do this via the Working Holiday Visa scheme.
Yeah, a friend told me about the Working Holiday Visa and the fact that it was really easy to apply for. And they just said it's brilliant for UK nationals, you can get it for a whole year. And so I just applied for it myself. It was very quick and straightforward. And then shortly after that, I realised that I needed to actually register as a sole proprietor as well, because I was in order to legally work for myself. And again, once I'd looked that up and found out how to do it, that was quite simple as well.
Excellent. The limitations on a working holiday visa is that they're only for a limited period of time. As a British national, I think you get 12 months. Other nationalities, not all nationalities can apply for them, but other nationalities, it's 3 to 6 months, I believe. And also the other issue with working holiday visas, you need to be under 30.
Yes, yeah.
So you were established for 12 months under the working holiday visa, and obviously that was due to expire. And I think that's when we first met to consider what other options were available to you.
Exactly. Yeah, the working holiday visa proved to be a success in that it proved that my business was viable in Hong Kong. So that meant that I needed to find a way to continue to do what I was doing. So my friend Nicholas and I set up a company together, which we called Neon Lights. And we went about the process of setting it up. We hired a company to help us with that because we didn't really know what we were doing. So they helped us a bit with the business plan, opening the bank account and registering the company. And we found that they were a little bit more money than they were worth. So when it came to us being about to apply for our visas, that's when I bumped into you and you advised that I sack them.
I think I suggested we went in a slightly different direction. Okay. So if I'm counting right, you've been in Hong Kong for 3 years and you've had an employment visa, a working holiday visa and an entrepreneur's visa. What difficulties did you encounter when applying for the entrepreneur visa?
Well, because both my business partner and I were non-local or non-PR, and we needed Neon Lights to sponsor both of us, as it's for shareholders, directors and employees. That was quite difficult because we had fairly limited upfront investment. Everything was self-funded. So it was that just made it quite tricky. I remember you saying that when we first met, that would be a difficulty for us.
Yes, I remember saying that. One of the key criteria for the entrepreneur visa is being able to demonstrate your substantial contribution to Hong Kong. This involves you putting together a business plan that sets out all of your key financial information as well as your investment, anticipated turnover and profits. But there's a very large incentive applied to generating local talent, i.e. hiring Hong Kong locals. And I recall that your original business plan envisaged you and Nicholas, both sort of Hong Kong locals being the first employees. And I felt that might cause some difficulty with the application process, in particular getting 2 visas rather than just 1.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. But the problem then pretty much sorted itself out.
That's right. I recall sitting in our conference room, your business partner, Nicholas, announced that he was due to get married to his other partner, and his other partner was very fortunately a Hong Kong permanent resident. They subsequently got married and he joined the company as a dependent, and we successfully obtained the entrepreneur visa for you. Do you recall any particular difficulties with the application process for entrepreneur visas?
I remember the main difficulty being the business plan. Neither Nicholas or I understood the jargon, so we ended up waffling on with unnecessary details and then showing it to you and you being like, but where are the numbers? Otherwise, it wasn't too tricky. There were a few questions back and forth from immigration when they needed clarification on my personal finances and the details of my previous employers. But thankfully, you were there to cut through the jargon and explain what it actually meant.
All of this happened about 2 years ago, and only a couple of months ago, you needed to apply to extend your entrepreneur visa. What particular difficulties arose when applying to extend the visa?
It was mainly about there being some discrepancies between our original business plan and what we'd actually achieved. So we'd managed to do keep on target financially. But then there were other areas where we departed a little bit from the original plan. And so because immigration retain all the papers, they look into that and they scrutinise it. And I'm sure even though we've resolved this, they'll probably scrutinise it on the next renewal as well.
Well, the good news is that's at least 3 years away, so you can breathe freely for a little while longer. That actually came about as a result of an internal government audit where they found that the Immigration Department possibly wasn't being as robust as it should have been when renewing entrepreneur visas in reviewing the previous business plan or the original business plan against what the company had actually achieved. And so when it came to your round of renewal, the government was very focused on that. And I recall coronavirus aside, again, it took slightly longer than we expected to answer all of the questions and to satisfy the Immigration Department with what they wanted.
Yeah, and with it being shut down as well, everything took a little bit longer than we'd hoped.
I'm sure it's very stressful, but as we say, that's 3 years. It's 3 years to go before we need to go through this again. So it's been great talking to you today. Thank you very much for sharing your experience and insights with us. This is Laura Hunt, Director of Neon Lights, Hong Kong's premier singing and spoken voice coach.
Yeah, and thank you, Adam, for helping with both of those visa processes over the years.
No problem at all. Thank you very much for listening to this immigration podcast by Hugill and Ip, and stay tuned.
Make sure you tune in to our other episodes of the Hip Talks podcast by checking the Insights section at our website at www.hugillandip.com. You're welcome to send your comments to our email address hello@hugillandip.com. If you found this episode to be insightful and helpful, please share it with your friends, family and business associates, along with other episodes of the Hip Talks podcast. For the hearing impaired, you can find the notes and the transcripts of this episode on our website. This podcast is for informational purposes only. Its contents do not constitute legal or professional advice.